So Donnie and I, as you know, travel a lot, and in our travels, sometimes to see some of you or out just to have some fun, we go to cities and places we've never been. So we use the app Waze, W-A-Y-Z, as our map and as our navigation system in whatever vehicle we happen to be in. Attach it to the Apple CarPlay and have a good time with that. And Waze tells you what's ahead on the road, and I think it is like a crowdsourced sort of thing. So you can actually report when you go by something that's there, and click on it, and it'll tell the other followers and the people who are coming behind you what's on the road ahead. It's kind of cool. It tells you if there's police ahead. It tells you if there's like a car on the side of the road or a pothole, or it should tell you if there's a bad driver ahead. I don't think it's figured out how to do that yet, right? But when that happens, we heed those warnings because we believe that others who have traveled that road before us had our best interests in mind. It's kind of a cool thing what they're doing. They're actually kind of paying it forward, so to speak, or paying it backwards, so to speak, on the road. If they see something that they've already encountered, they want to make sure that those of us behind them coming up on that encounter with that as well. It's pretty cool. And so the reason that we trust Waze is in part because we trust people who've gone down that road before us. There's something that Waze does that's rather annoying, though. We'll be driving along in silence, perhaps, or maybe just listening to music, and maybe it's after a long meeting, so our brains are sort of tired. And Waze, the way we have it set usually, comes up a little bit louder than whatever we're listening to. And once in a while, the Waze voice, which is a woman's voice, yells, "Look out!" And then she'll say, "Pothole ahead," or "Watch out! Police ahead." Or it startles me back into attention, right? It's kind of funny. Remember last time you had somebody tell you, "Watch out, look out, watch out for this, careful, careful"? Did you actually listen to them? Did you pay attention to them as much as we pay attention to our navigation system in our car? Well, we find out that most of the time people don't. Even if people that are close to you, people who care a lot about you, give you some perspective on something. "Hey, watch out, don't do that, don't go that direction." Most of us just go, "Okay." We nod, smile. We might even be polite and say, "Thank you, appreciate you sharing," but we do not actually take their advice. Even their warnings, we don't take their warnings because we think we all know better. We have a mental model that you're not me and I'm different in somehow, and the rules of life don't apply to me. Because I'm either not going that way, or I don't think that way, or I'm better than that. All kinds of weird, twisted mental models we've got that make us not listen to the advice and perspective of people around us, even when those people care very much for us. So there's a fascinating study done by a consortium of universities published about 5 or 6 years ago as of this recording that suggested that about 84% of the time when people give us advice, we do not take their advice, even when those people are people who are close to us. 84% of the time. Then the rest of the time, those few percentage points when we do take people's advice, we custom fit that advice to our setting so it's almost unrecognizable. It's because we have a mental model about that person and about ourselves and about that situation that doesn't invite advice. You remember we've talked a lot about what mental models are. Mental models, in short, are models we build about the world and about ourselves because we don't experience the world as it is. We experience it as we think it is. So the most mature people I know and the most effective leaders, managers, supervisors, folks who are about influencing folks around them, realize that we look at ourselves and the world through these mental models, and that our mental models are incomplete at best, and at worst they may be flat out wrong. And so now that we know, we look at the world not as it is, but through these lenses I like to call mental models, then we can become aware of the fact that it's possible for us to change our mental models. Now, when it comes to anything, I like studying things that work. If I want to learn something and learn it quickly, I like to learn it from people who've mastered it, not from a whole bunch of people who screwed up and have never figured it out. I like to study what works. That's called appreciative inquiry. And when I'm facing a problem that I can't quite figure out, I like to pivot quickly and find out who's figured that out and how have they done that. I like studying what works, not so much what doesn't work. I find that approach much more helpful. But sometimes it's appropriate for you and I to understand what doesn't work, to understand what not to do, what's never going to work, especially if once we see it, we can easily avoid it. So That's what I want to talk with you about today. I want to talk with you about some mental models that folks have got that are flat out wrong. And I'll list them and want to see if you can actually pick up any of those that might be hanging around your neck or any of those lenses that you might have on. So a while ago, my family had some property on the Ponderay River in northeastern Washington state. Beautiful place. And in order to get to that property, we went up Highway 20, north from Spokane, quite a ways, up Highway 20, and we would come to a resort called the Blue Slide Resort. Just north of the Blue Slide Resort, just a quarter of a mile north of the Blue Slide Resort. The road would raise up above the river so you could look down a nice hill, almost a cliff, to see the beautiful river. And then there would be signs that said, slow down, curve ahead. And slow down, curve ahead. And then as you approach that signs, there were strips painted along the road that you wouldn't see almost anywhere else to get your attention, to tell you to slow down, slow down, slow down. In fact, there were at one point 8 different signs closely packed together with arrows saying you're going to turn sharply to the left, and 4 signs that told you to slow down, slow down, slow down, and take that curve at 20 miles per hour. Yet every time we went by, over the years that we had that property, every time we went by, one of those signs would have been knocked over by somebody who wasn't paying attention or by somebody who didn't believe it. But the most damage that was done halfway through the curve, that's where most of the damage was done, every time we went through that area. It was traumatic to see how people would actually just slide their way through that corner after all of the warning signs, knock over the signs, and tear out the guardrails. What an example of somebody who had folks ahead of them saying, watch out, watch out, watch out, because if you don't take this corner at a slow speed, you're going to wreck. There was even one point in time where we went by there where an entire section of the guardrail had been ripped out and the signs surrounding it had been laid down, and clearly someone went straight through that curve and over the edge and then down the embankment. I hope they weren't injured, but they probably were. Well, let me share with you a few of these bridge out signs or left-hand turn signs or slow down signs, kind of like our Waze does with us. They say pothole ahead or police ahead. I want to show you these signs in the form of mental models or assumptions that you may have or that people you lead may have. And if you believe them to be true and you just take them for granted, you're going to suffer. Now, there are only 12 of them that I'm going to share with you. That sounds like the video is going to be really long. It won't. I'm going to get through all 12 of them in a brief fashion so you can see what these 12 signs, these 12 lookout signs, these pothole signs are in the form of mental models. If you believe these mental models, they will wreck you. They do not work. Here we go. You ready? Number 1, I equal what I do. My work or my position, my job, what I create, what I don't create, is me. I equal that. Therefore, I have to always do this or that or the other thing to make myself more valuable. I equal what I do. If that's your mental model, look out. Watch out. Number 2, I equal what I have. Now, in our culture, in our society today, which is a capitalistic society that fueled on us buying and owning and buying and owning in a lot of ways, and capitalism works really well most of the time. But if I come to believe, living in that sea, that I equal what I have, then the more I have, the more I am. Well, that's actually a faulty and flawed mental model. A third mental model is I equal my position. Either my position on an issue, I take a position on an issue, or my position within a rank structure in some way. And the higher my rank is in an organization, the more valuable I am. So that is a mental model that will mess you up every time. The fourth mental model that's very dangerous is that I, as a leader, manager, supervisor, and influencer, I need everyone's approval. There's a corollary to that flawed mental model, and that is that if someone doesn't approve of me, since I need it, I have to have it. If they don't approve of me, it must be something wrong with them. They're dead to me. Another corollary to that same mental model is that I really need to know what people think of me, and I need them to think well of me. A third corollary is that I equal what others think of me. These are subtle corollaries to that main mental model. It was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, "You wouldn't worry so much about what people think of you if you realized how rarely they do." Oh, okay, here we go. Here's a fifth mental model that's like, careful, careful, careful. If you believe this, you're going to be in trouble. Things need to be perfect, me included, and everything I do, and everything has to be perfect, and it has to be perfect in every detail. A perfectionist is that person. They're kind of proud to call themselves a perfectionist. They're fairly unhappy people in that regard, I've noticed. Whenever I ask somebody who claims to be a perfectionist what perfection looks like, they usually can't answer. So here's the truth. We don't experience things, one another, or events, or experience in great detail. We experience them in a whole, the whole thing. If you look at a beautiful painting, you don't experience it one brush stroke at a time. You experience the entire painting. If you listen to beautiful music, if you go to an event where someone is presenting to you, if you create a video, whatever, people do not, you and I do not experience every detail of it. We experience it in whole, all right? Things don't arrive in a perfect state, and they don't stay in that way. So careful with that mental model. Here's the sixth mental model. Truth persuades people who don't want to be persuaded. There's a corollary to that, and that is that truth makes people want to give up their power. It doesn't. Here's another corollary. Truth makes us feel good. Well, usually not at first. I've got a dear friend, Tim, who says that reality is an acquired taste, and reality is truth. Oh, think about that one. There's another corollary to this one, and that is that truth will set you free, but only if you want to be set free. All right, seventh mental model. I am my brain. I am my brain. That is a person who believes that whatever my brain does is me. But our brain is an organ. We have known from modern science all the way back to ancient times that our brain is an organ, but our mind is something else. And now we know, and we know how this happens, that our mind can change our brain, the organ, the brain itself. Here's something to think about. If you think, well, I am my brain, you may have missed the boat on that. That's a faulty mental model. Here's the eighth mental model. I'm in control. I have authority. Therefore, you will respect my authority. People do not respect authority who don't respect anything, right? So careful with that mental model. Authority is not what garners respect. The ninth mental model is this. Success means comfort. Therefore, the more successful I am, the more comfortable I'll be. And a corollary to that is that I have arrived. I'm successful. Therefore, I deserve, and then fill in the blank. A corollary that goes with that is the purpose of life is comfort, or similar themes. Or success means security. If you have those mental models, you're going to be running into bridge out signs and sharp corner signs left and right. Because reality is what we run into when we're wrong. Here's the 10th mental model. We are smarter and wiser than those who've gone before us, than our ancestors. That is, the corollary with that is that people before the digital age and before this new age of science, or science-y age, before connectivity, people were dumber than we are. They just weren't very smart. Wow. Another corollary with that is that my family of origin, those who have gone before me, has no effect on me. That I'm an individual apart from my family. That's a faulty mental model. No matter how healthy or unhealthy, how functional or dysfunctional your family was, your family of origin, in truth, has a profound influence on what you see and what you do. The 11th mental model, I'm supposed to be right as a leader. I'm supposed to have the right answers as a leader. I'm supposed to see and manage all of the risks. And if I don't, oh no, I'm failing as a leader. If you have that mental model, you will not sleep. Here's our last dangerously faulty mental model. Are you ready for this one? I am the center of the universe. Now, it sounds silly, right? It sounds totally silly to say that, but there's a lot of folks, of course not you, one of your friends perhaps, who walk around believing they are the center of the universe. There's a corollary to that. The mental model that there is no God is a faulty mental model. One of my favorite philosophers named A.W. Tozer said, "What comes to mind when we think about God is the most important thing about us. It shapes us. We tend," he went on to write, "by a secret law of the soul to move toward our mental image of God." Now you can imagine that if you think he doesn't exist, well, you're screwed, right? Corollary that goes with that. If a person believes that, they believe that there is no objective truth. Now, if you started to swallow that pill, you are about ready to go over the hill and over the ridge and down into the river at Blue Slide. Of course, we don't want that for you. So wouldn't it be nice if we had a voice in our head or in our car or sitting beside us that shouted, "Watch out," whenever we were getting ready to use a flawed mental model? Just like Waze says to us. Well, you know, we've got lots of signs along the road of our life that point out our flawed mental models. And we can ignore them, like a lot of people did on Highway 20 in the northeastern part of Washington State, and we'll suffer the consequences. We can ignore every one of those flashing signs and every one of those watch out, look out, sharp turn kind of warnings that come our way. Yeah, and then we're the ones that are going to suffer. And those that we lead, those that we help manage projects with, those we supervise, and those we influence. Every time I go by that bend in the road, it seems like another sign has been knocked down, and another person who just ignored that warning sign and thought with this operational mental model, this core mental model, the rules of life don't apply to me. Of course, that's not you. Leadership is hard, so don't make it harder than it needs to be by accidentally or intentionally using these flawed mental models. Pay attention to these 12 dirty dozen mental models. And if you've believed them and you've messed up, it's time to go back and change those mental models. Because you know you've got important work to do, and we need for you to succeed. Keep up the good work. See you next time.